Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
February 15th, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers, and we are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to have you with us. 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, which I will update you by show's end on that. We are live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. And the reason I say it's February 15th to open the show is because I can't believe we are already halfway through the month of February.
Yeah, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Everything just goes by so fast, especially when you do a job like this, because there's so much turnover. The rate that you move in sports is so fast that at some point you really have to take advantage of the moments where you can sit back and enjoy the ride.
Man, it wasn't last night. It was funny. Good morning, by the way.
Hey, good morning to you.
Be a part of what we're doing. 888-638-4876. Plenty of hot takes. I had the best one yesterday. I'm just going to go ahead and get that one out of the way. Because as you wake up on March 5th, Creighton will not have lost a basketball game. It's the greatest take ever. How about Joel when he said, I kind of want to take you up on that, man, but
he did want to place a side bet.
Hey, and I knew full well last night was going to be the
sweat.
Yeah. Last night was the sweat game. Still should have won it, but anyway. So yesterday, I'm watching, West Side of Miller West, and I get there early. Obviously, I'm a corner guy. I'm pulling a Drew down in Grand Island, getting my game watch right. So I had a decision to make. Okay, so I have to ask myself, okay, am I going Nebraska first or Creighton? I went Nebraska.
Smart move.
Because I felt like, so full disclosure, it's my alma mater, but do you know why I chose Nebraska? I felt like it would command less attention.
I was about to say you chose Nebraska because you would feel like you would have to focus more on the Creighton Providence game because
that is
the
correct.
Superiorness. And I say that
it was close. It was, the line was 1.5. Nebraska's got as high as 14. I was like, okay. So at the very same moment, catty corner from me is one Alvin Mitchell. So Alvin's he sits in the same spot as well. He is diagonal from me in the gym. Doesn't bother anybody. He minds his own business. He barely talks, especially if you don't go sit by him, he's not talking. So he's on his phone too. He's obviously watching Creighton. CJ and Caleb are both playing our other kids. He's obviously watching a different game than I am.
Can you just tell by reaction?
His mannerisms were
body language
were completely different from mine. Now, granted, Creighton started earlier. Okay, they started earlier. I get it, but man, we were two different people dialed into our phones as we're watching a high school basketball game that our kids are supposed to be. He's actually being a parent. I'm trying to work because I know, and I said it 15 times during the game. Coach Samanji was sitting next to me. Tom Thompson, another guy to my left, former West Side alum.
Tommy Thompson.
Yeah. And I called him T2.
I feel like that's a name in a song.
And so it's whatever at the half, and Nebraska's up 5. And I was like, shoot, man. He's like, what's up? I'm like, I'm going to have to really go home and carve into this Creighton Providence game now. So everybody goes to bed last night. Not a light on in the house other than the TV. And I am rewinding, fast forwarding. I'm like, man, could you just not have won this with the lob at the rim at the buzzer? Or I was just going through all these things in my head. But what a stark contrast and how those two basketball games were played, man. I mean, the Road Warriors, and I hate to give credit in the same vein that I said Creighton was going to run the table. Sam McEwen is starting to look like a genius. You be honest, when he threw out the potential for the finishing record, you chortled a little.
Oh, sure did. I said I think I said 2, and they've already gotten 3.
Yeah, I'm like, really?
Because he said, there's 2 or 3 more wins on the schedule.
And I said, when he said the record, he goes, "Oh yeah, they could be 14 and 16." You know, and
they could be 15 and 15.
And I remember when he said it, because that was with the whole kind of Coach Hoiberg thing, and I knew what Trev had said on the radio, and I knew what I had heard kind of that I felt like they were in a good spot, right? Like Fred doesn't really have anything to talk about, which is why I didn't ask, that low-hanging fruit.
Hey, do you think he'll get fired?
How many more wins does it take, or things like that? I remember I was joking with Robin a couple weeks ago, because there's no way Robin would know that, right? But just watching them play, is proud the word you want to use? Because I don't know if they want you to be proud of them, but you are talking about a team.
You can have fun with them, though.
And they changed their arena. It's not the Rack anymore. Is it? I think it's Jersey Mike's. I'm going to blow. Is it Jersey Mike's arena?
That sounds right.
Okay, so then you're watching this game unfold, and it always looks dark, and it's ugly there anyway. And
it is.
Nebraska gets out to the lead, and when Griesel hit the floater at the buzzer
at half,
yep. Did you think to yourself, they're going to win this thing?
I actually thought, oh man, we're getting our hopes up at half. That's
really?
What I thought. Because it seemed like throughout this game that even though Nebraska was shooting the ball well, and especially
when CJ Wilcher hit the 2 threes early, you were probably like, oh, here we go.
Well, and I thought, man, they're teasing us, right? And it's easy to feel that way. Sitting at home watching this game, as other Nebraska fans out there were probably thinking similar things, like, oh, at what point is Rutgers and the so-called environment of Jersey Mike's?
No, that isn't so-called. They're 14 and 2 in that bad
That's
boy.
what I'm saying. When is that going to take over? And as the half progressed, and you get to that floater by Griesel, and you have a 2-bucket lead. You're like,
yeah, what was it? It was 40-35 at the half, right after the floater, and
you're thinking, hey,
did you get it? Did you have some warm fuzzies?
Well, I was watching Creighton on the TV, and I was watching Nebraska on my phone, and I'm like, man, 40-35. That seems like a lot of points.
It seemed like too many. Hey, listen, it seemed like too many points for where Nebraska was at,
and so because of that, I thought, there's no way the second half looks like this. And you wonder when the mistakes will sort of come, whether it's Wilcher turning the ball over, whether it's Tominaga doesn't have his night in the second half, whether it's, the full court pressure by Rutgers is going to cause some frenzy, which it did.
Yeah, Nebraska really won with 14 turnovers.
Right.
I think Lawrence had 5 of them.
But they, even after 2 turnovers, because of the runs Nebraska went on, because of the threes Tominaga made, it gave that buffer room to allow you to turn the ball over and say, hey, even though we messed up these first 2 times, we beat you the 3rd time. Yeah. And we're still ahead by 6.
How about Nebraska's ability to answer like those little mini runs, like big shot? Rutgers hit the little step back too. I think it was Hyatt maybe. And I think it made it 43, 43, or 43, 42 or something like that. And Nebraska comes down and bangs the 3 right off the bat. And you just felt like, and it happened a couple of times, especially through the low 50s, and you're like, Nebraska isn't going anywhere. They're going to hit big shot. The 3 from Wilcher from the top of the key, it was the perfect no, yes.
no.
Well, he just stepped into it in rhythm too, so you felt a little bit better about it. But I just think their ability to answer big shots. They made, I don't know, 7 out of 10 or 7 out of 9 down the stretch. They were good from the foul line. And here's the weird thing. Remember yesterday we were talking about culture, and I'm not going to harp on the culture thing. Like, I'm going to tell you that because we were talking about it with Coach Bolt. Mm-hmm. As competitive and flexible as that lineup is going to be, right? Whether they want to play gorilla ball or small ball, or you got a 1 and 1A at the front of that rotation Friday, Saturday. You got multiple pieces in the back end. You have to be cool with knowing your role, right? Because some days it may not be your night. And you have to be okay with that, because culture. We're in a culture where I cheer for the man next to me. I'm going to do as my coach says. This is the epitome of leadership, all that good stuff, right? Who were we hyping up just Monday after the weekend? They may have found something in who? Keita.
Oh,
right?
Tominaga.
No,
Yeah.
Keita.
Oh, Blaze. Yeah.
How many minutes did he play last night?
Not sure.
I'll tell you right off the bat, 4. So he went from
that scrappy player that made some
the
big
guy that
stops,
everybody was lamenting about it.
diving on
Hey,
the
here he
board,
comes
things like
to 4
that.
minutes. Now, coincidentally, who's the guy that went into the starting lineup and we're like, oh man, you can't play him that much. His last start, he only played 11 minutes, even though he was a starter. Then last night, he's like Johnny on the spot. It's Sam Hoiberg, right? You cannot have guys do that, being ready on demand without believing in what you're doing. Trust me when I tell you. People subscribe to the, hey man, I got to be ready when called upon. Hey man, I got to be ready when called upon, until there's stretches where you're not called upon. Right? Then it's not cool anymore, right?
Right.
And Nebraska just kept finding a way to answer. And I was like, they may have something. But I'm not that guy over time, I'm not sure this is how
It's not
sustainable.
sustainable.
But I don't care. But you know what? I didn't allow myself to get into that. I'm like, you know what? For what this is absolutely amazing, especially when you talk about knowing your roles. I got into this fantastic basketball discussion yesterday with Jacob Padilla off pod after we did high school hoops, and we were talking about how in 3 weeks Tominaga's gone from polarizing whipping boy to he's the man, and they're continually saying the Japanese Steph Curry on broadcast, right? Which still doesn't quite sit well, but I mean, whatever, right? It's like if he embraces, hey, whatever, right? I mean, we have an Asian Wyatt that calls us, so I'm cool, right? But it's like, oh, he's self-glossed too. Hey, me. Don't blame me. So, and it's like, so what Padilla was saying to me that I'm totally on board with, that, basketball heads will tell you, his understanding of that offense and where he needs to be on the floor, as opposed to just running around chucking up threes. It's slide into this opening. Hey, I'm being overplayed. They want to crowd me because they know I can shoot. How about him moving without the basketball?
I was going
things
to say,
like that.
I was going to say the same thing.
It's vastly different, and he had a couple of those slips last night.
He's always on the go.
Yeah.
If you watch him on an offensive possession, you're probably following the ball. But if you look off ball, there's not a lot of times you see Tominaga standing around, because he knows in order to get his shot, he has to move. They're not just going to leave him hanging on a wing. They're not going to leave him hanging in the corner. But he also likes to run the floor, whether it's transition or just in half-court play. He'll always be on the go because he wants the ball. And the best players in basketball, like the best shooters, have to create shots for themselves. Now, you can have help with off-ball screens, things like that. But for the most part, you have to get open yourself.
Yeah, they're not going to hide in the corner like, don't pass to me, right? And I think with him, and he's playing off the general, who was really the general last night. The G and Greasel should have been for general. He only had the 1 turnover, the 5 or 6 assists. He's double digits in boards. He's double digits in scoring. He had the double-double.
He's doing some good
and
things.
He hit a couple of tough. So the little floater that he hit in the second half kind of quelled a little bit of the crowd wanted to get into it, and Greasel had the back down, the
sucked out the energy.
dribble, and he hit the tough shot, and you're like, he got it. Another backbreaker answer.
And how well has Sam been playing overall? Just controlling the basketball game. And that's been
what's the things that we were saying in the beginning, right? He doesn't get sped up, right? He was controlling the tempo. He had the basketball on the string. And now if you're Rutgers, you're thinking, man, we got to be better than 28-61, but that may be who we are. But the 8 of 23 from 3, and it's not a good foul shooting team.
Good transition to over to Creighton Providence. Something that really hurt the scoring column for Creighton was the poor shooting night of Baylor Shireman, because I told you as you walked in, Creighton was one Shireman 3 away from getting ahead in that game, from winning that basketball game. If he would have made that 1-3,
yes and no. I mean, I'm with you.
Different.
I'm with you, because there are times he drives me bonkers. I mean, full disclosure, right? It's like it's not always aesthetically pleasing, but some of that is just me, and I gotta get over myself, right? But there was so many little things. Listen, I'm not sure what Coach Mack and Miller and Russ, the staff is or Huss is saying about the movement of the basketball. But I've said this before. I said it when in Arizona, when they got beat by Arizona. I said it against Texas. There's something that happens to this team in crunch time. The basketball just gets sticky. Dribble. That's just not who they are, right? And I get it. It's contested and it's tough, but there were about 4 or 5 possessions. First of all, shout out to Providence for the double out of the inbounds play to get the ball out of Trey Alexander's hands.
Right.
I mean, it was right in front of the scorer's table.
Because
so
nobody projects you to double.
You're immediately in panic mode, right? You're like, oh, shoot.
Great coaching
man.
by Cooley.
Nice little adjustment.
That moment right there, I would say Cooley outcoached McDermott on
TA doesn't panic, right? One move, then it's to Shireman. They still had a good look at that lob at the rim. And I know Kaluma wants that one back.
Right.
Because I think
some hands mixed in there.
Yeah, but
didn't really get a good grip on it.
He's capable, right? So then there's that. And they run it all the time. And Nembhard, listen, he was reading it well. The little 2-man game, call comes, he gives the high ball screen. Providence decides they drop, they roll with Kalk. Nembhard he doesn't get buried, but it was too many dribbles at the rim for him because he didn't get the one-hand scoop, which he's as good as anybody in America. You didn't love that. But then the and this is the guy that was arguing about the officiating in the Super Bowl, one play not costing the game. The bad entry pass to Kalk, the ball's stolen. Sharman comes down and commits the foul, so it's the double whammy. You turn the ball over on one end, you give up the and one on the other. Then the very next couple series, it's the dribble, Kalk, nothing there. Then Kaluma, the dribble, jump hook, comes up short. I'm like, that's not how they play.
And there's only one player on that team that can play like that.
That's just not how they play.
Who's the one player on that team that can play like that?
I don't love it, but are you going to say Sharman?
No, I was going to say Nembhard.
Yeah, because he's handling it, but not in the. They're not a. The more times this team dribbles in the paint,
I know where you're going. He starts outside, gets in
without gaining ground. The worse it is for.
Well, and when you say dribble, stop. When Kalkbrenner had a couple of those down low, it was as easy as, hey, drop that right foot, go up with the left. But he favors that left curl with his left shoulder back to the hoop. He favors that for the right hook more than he does like going to his left hand. And you can notice his comfort level with a lot of opportunities that he has. It depends on where he's on the floor if he wants to go to his left hand. But for a lot of points in that game, when you're backing down your guy, you could tell that, hey, when the ball was in the paint, everybody was like, let's let Kalkbrenner go. Let's let Kalkbrenner go.
They were going to stay attached to shooters and allow him to play one-on-one, which I don't mind.
But I also, what I minded more was that there was no cut to the hoop, no nothing by Creighton when you could tell that your guy was stuck. It's one thing if he's making ground like we were just talking about. There's another when you're just standing there like, hey, let's let Kalkbrenner do work offensively. Then when the shot goes up, where are you? Where are you? On the 3-point line? What if Kalkbrenner misses? I know he doesn't all that much, but what if he does?
An uncharacteristic. It's almost like, and I don't know, maybe Mac would have a different kind of answer, but it's almost like, because Kalkbrenner uncharacteristically had the 4 turnovers, which
well, I got to tell you, man, errant passes down the stretch of that game.
Oh, I know.
Oh my
I know
goodness.
I know it.
Errant and telegraphed. They were giving that game away toward the end.
Do you know who
they were fortunate to be in double overtime?
Do you know? And I want to see him in person. And no, I'm not. Did you think Alexander should have had more touches in crunch time? Gosh, he's a momentum killer. I don't know. See,
overall, great defense by Providence to stop everything.
I'm not going to try to speak this into existence because I love Trey Alexander. But I want to go back to that conversation we had a couple weeks ago about most valuable versus most important. Somehow Alexander has to be more involved. I don't know how. Listen, it's way above my pay grade, but he's clutch. How many times did he quell momentum last night? At least a couple.
Yeah, him and Nemhard kind of went hand in hand last night.
And it's like, I know shooters shoot, but at what point do you look at how you're shooting the basketball and do something different last night? I don't know, but one guy I want to see in person. I just want to see how big who looks like a large human? How big does Hopkins look to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, that guy.
He looks like a stud, doesn't he?
Him and Derek Walker, they kind of have.
Well, I've seen D Walk, so I get it.
But
Hop looks like,
I don't know. They look pretty similar.
I don't think D Walk would walk around too much without his shirt. He might. I don't know, but he doesn't have like B Hop looks like.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
He may flex on you.
I'll tell you what, though, D Walk too.
I know he's a meaty dude.
That dude is.
Big boy, and he was doing work last night. Rutgers needed that interior defense. They were missing last night. There were just opportunities I felt like Creighton had to win, and Alexander plays 49 minutes, not to be outdone by Hopkins playing 50 last night. I don't know, man. There's a lot that.
A crazy slate of college basketball all around. We'll get into more of that in the next segment. Our poll question of the day: does Juju have the cred to troll the Eagles? Yes or no? We'll get into that later on throughout the show.
There were some great Valentines.
Right. We'll talk to Michigan Lance too coming up.
We're going to look up on March the 4th, actually the morning of March the 5th, and Creighton will have ran the table to close out this season. Agree or disagree?
Define running the table.
So I think they won't lose again when we wake up on March 5th.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of haters.
Interesting.
A lot of haters.
Man, why did this quote come back up today? Let's take a peek into Andrew's crystal ball of recent history.
We're going to look up on March the 4th, actually the morning of March the 5th, and Creighton will have ran the table.
DB, there was you instantly said during the break, "Oh, my co-host pick on me."
It's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Yeah, my co-host is now going to pick on me.
Context matters, and so do the words. I did not. I'm 48 years old. I would not say pick on. First of all,
I don't know.
That's a term you may use.
You do.
What I said was
a child's vocabulary.
Yeah, pick on is something. Listen, I'm not 4 today. Maybe tomorrow, not today.
All right.
What I said was, we're going to look up on I knew you two would be in cahoots because you're used to me batting 1,000. So when I make a mistake or I say something wrong, it's easy to pounce. That's a lot different than
bothered you.
You pick on me. Nobody's saying that.
He got picked on. So, and the reason this got brought back up was I remember vividly about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, about a week ago.
When a team from Florida ended up losing their very next game after I was high on them.
FAU?
And it was FAU. And the very next day on the show, DB goes, "Well, you're the reason they lost."
I said kiss of death.
You're the kiss of death.
Hey, how about that
And
hater?
then I said Marshall, Thunder, and Hurd, and you're like, "Well, they're not making the tournament now."
How about that hater hockey dad, Jonathan Rich, saying kiss of death, DB? Kiss. He's such a hater. Like, when's the last
You
time?
started though.
No, I didn't. I don't mess with that dude.
Not with him, but
No.
the kiss of death.
That's fine. But when's the last time he said, "Hey, man, good call," or "Hey, man, nice work," or "Hey, well done"? No, man, the dude is a hater.
You get called that when you're wrong.
Oh, I don't mind
more
that.
times than not,
Listen,
you're right.
So
Not in this case.
in this business where you make some lofty predictions, you're gonna have to eat it
Hey,
sometimes.
I'm with you.
But I do.
But I'm going to make you eat it.
Hey, listen, you love Drake,
You're
right?
at the dinner
You
table
love Drake,
for
right?
too
You love
long
Drake,
now.
right?
Yeah, I do love Drake.
Keep that same energy, because like when I tell you that the Chiefs will beat the Bengals, or I'm absolutely certain, or I'll take this guy over this guy in this game, I want you to come back the very next morning and be like, "Man, DB, shout out. Shane, can you text him? Hey, text your secret lover at night, man, and be like, hey
sorry.
find that clip where David said, like," and Shane's like, "Oh, I'm all over it, man." Even though
That's not what I
that
said.
is what you said,
That
Wiener.
is not even close.
Just like when
Subtly.
slide it in and keep it pushing, right? My man was like,
DB, I can't show you love because I only love my
No,
dad
it's
and my
cool.
mama. I'm sorry.
"Nice one. Hey, are you a lyricist?" Hey, so it's funny. I can't even tell it on air because I told you off air, but we're gonna look up on see this is what he does. I'm telling you, my man,
I look
Mr.
up every
Mc-
day, all
Mr.
day,
McLean,
all
T-Mac,
long.
he's got it down. He walked me through working with various co-hosts. I'm gonna stop giving you the benefit of the doubt after this morning. That's all I'm
Hey,
gonna
I've said some
and
wild stuff.
and I'm gonna leave it at that. That's okay though.
I embrace being wrong too.
I knew last night was going to be like if I could just get past that game. Now I got to fret.
I'm telling you, man. I'm watching how close this game is down the stretch, and I'm texting you.
Bro, the line was like 1 and 1.5.
It was 2.5.
Was
which Joel Lorenzi
did it end up being
out.
favored? It was
Creighton was favored.
Okay.
Joel did tweet out that Providence was 34-1 in the app.
Yeah, I know.
And so he was like, "I'm not really sure why
Yeah.
Creighton is the favorite."
Did you see his tweet back to me? Because I
did.
I gave him the
You
gif
did.
of the guy kind of yawning. Like, yeah, nothing to see here.
Oh, I liked his tweet.
And my man subtly came back with, "I hear they're blaming you." Are they? I don't know, man. I don't believe. Do you believe in jinx? I'm not superstitious.
Yeah, I believe in a jinx because you called me out for a jinx.
I don't, but I'm just talking though. Like, I don't like, that's not in my heart of hearts.
Oh, you
I'm
don't-
just messing with
whatever
you.
whatever you preach, you don't believe.
No, I'm just messing with you though. At that point, I mean, you went out on a limb. FAU isn't that good.
No, I said they were playing well at the time. 'Cause
Yeah,
they
like,
were what, like 20 and
I
1
don't
or something?
mind when you take a shot. Like, take a swing at it, right? Like, I'm not gonna.
I didn't get knocked down. They're still 25th in the nation.
No, I know. I hear you. Now they're still not good, but
Sure. Well, yeah, they're not.
do
They're
they have-
not any of the
how-
other top teams in the.
How many more
AP
quad
top
wins?
25?
How many more quad one wins do they have than Carolina? Any?
How many more quad 1 wins does Nebraska have than Kentucky? 1.
You're supposed to let me guess.
Sorry, it took too long. It's like at the
So that
dinner
means
table.
they have 2 more than Carolina.
That is correct. What is Carolina? 0-9 now?
Hey, you're lucky I don't cuss because I want to say something so bad to you right now, but it won't sound cool. I'm one of those guys that, like, when they get mad, I have to immediately jump to fighting, because if it goes to like trash talking, you're gonna be like, "Man, this dude's a gump." You jerk.
Hey, you can call me a jerk. I call you a jerk sometimes.
You
Clown.
yeah.
You
laughed at me. What did I say yesterday? And you go, "You're so ridiculous. I'm just gonna make a T-shirt of all your sayings."
Yeah, I did. And you're like, nobody would get it. And I said, that's the point. Because it's whenever you walk around,
What did
people
I
will know
say,
what you're
though?
saying.
What did I say? I was mad at Shane, and I think
No,
I wasn't mad at Shane. Was I mad at you? I think I called somebody a name, and you go, "You're ridiculous."
Was it the Richard head?
No.
Was it something different?
Relax over there, half pint.
Was it nicer than that?
I can't even remember.
I just remember saying, I'm going to make a T-shirt because you could literally take words out of your mouth and put it on a shirt, and people would laugh.
Yeah,
and you don't even have to cite you. Like I don't even have to. My works cited page doesn't even have to say Damon Benning on it.
Oh,
people
man.
will know.
Hey, we were coming home from the game yesterday, basketball, and we missed our mornings with Micah, but he said something slick in the back seat, and Caleb was driving, and just real calm. Like I didn't even. He had to be traumatized. Like I felt bad. I was like, "Look, man," I said, "That's your problem." Right? Like you leave it open to interpretation. You got the head down, you shake your head, the bad body language, and all you're getting ready to tell me is what you wanted to say or what you meant. I said, when you leave it open to guessing, we got problems. And Caleb under his breath goes, "Man, very well said. That's a good point." And I could see Mike throw himself back in the seat. I said, "Look, man." That's just what I said to my kid. I swear to goodness. It's 8:45 and we're driving home, and I'm already mad that they're like in the locker room for 30 hours and I have to go back and watch Creighton, right? I was like, "Look, man," I said, "see, that's the kind of stuff that'll get you choked out. You're going to wake up in a couple of minutes and you're going to, why did my dad do that to me?" And I'm going to simply tell you when you come to, it's because your body language sucks. And Caleb was just like, "Man, that's cold how he just kind of low-key." But that's how you feel sometimes, right? Like sometimes you just have to choke a kid.
Hey, let's go to line one, Shane. We'll take Michigan Lance's call now. Lance, good morning, man. Got about a minute and a half. What's up?
Man, good morning. Hey, college, Andrew, young, so I will perspective on what you saw into college basketball. But UNDB.
Hey, Michigan Lance, hang on. Michigan, hold that thought. Call us back. We'll get you first call coming out of the break.
Okay, you want me to call back? Or
yeah, because you're breaking up. Call us right back. We're going to take a quick break. Come back in 4 minutes.
Perfect.
I think I want to hear this.
Perfect. So
is that cool, Lance?
Well, he's off now.
Oh, thanks.
He hung up.
Listen. Hey, so I was telling Terrence last night, I was like, "Hey," he said something about the hard outs or something like that. And I said, "Hey, like, however many percent of the time," I said, "I'm like, Andrew and I," he's like pointing at the clock, like, 1 minute, 30 seconds. You will get bounced with these hard outs.
Hey, later on in the show, I'm going to bring up a prompt that, sparked my interest in an article Mitch Sherman wrote about a week ago in regards to rules next big find. We'll get into that. We'll talk to Brian Christopherson at 8 o'clock. We will talk to Andy Kendeigh at 8:30. We'll talk to Evan Porter, Omaha baseball head coach. We'll talk to Ed Servais, head coach over at Creighton. We're getting all the baseball in this week. And then we will play two for you to close out the show.
Man.
All of that and more, but Michigan Lance up first. Next. Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. We are heading to the phone lines right now to re-engage with our guy, Michigan Lance, to talk a little college basketball. Lance, thanks for holding on. Thanks for calling back. Now we have a little bit more time to talk with you.
Hey, no, that's all good. Sound better?
It's okay. I mean, where are you, in the Everglades? You getting chased by a gator?
Hey, man. Swamp, man. So the swamps out here, man. I got to commend you guys for talking college basketball and making it sound interesting, because it's really, like, Andrew, I really want to know your perspective, because you grew up in a different era of me and DB in college basketball. And we grew up in an era of a lot of really great and good teams in the 80s and 90s. especially like in the 90s, I believe my opinion is that college basketball was in the NBA, but in the 80s, the NBA and college were on the same level. They were both great to watch with great teams. Remember DB like Junior Burroughs, Corey Alexander, Virginia.
Oh yeah. Brian Stiff, Randolph Childress, Tim Duncan. Yeah,
like those guys, Final Fours, and they had great teams. Like, and so now this inconsistency of good play, but then also like the fundamentally, like you'll see a fundamentally good play, and then like you won't see one for like 10 minutes straight again.
Yeah.
And it's like guys aren't fundamentally sound in their shooting, their shots. So like it is not a good brand of basketball. Like everybody is in it. Like Nebraska's not out of it. Despite their record, they're not out of it. They can actually go on a run in the Big Ten and it wouldn't be a surprise. Like you know what I'm saying?
How about Nebraska having the ability to not be in the play-in game?
Who you said, Nebraska?
Yeah, basketball. Like they could not have to play on that first day.
Right? Yeah, like that. Yeah, that record. Look how like even Creighton went on a run and then they come back. Like it's just mind-boggling to me. It's not mind-boggling. Like we talk about bigger and faster, stronger in this era, right? Of athletes, but you know what? Is it better? Like people's fundamentals. They're like the fundamentals are just out the window. So somebody will say like, well, Larry Bird couldn't play in this day. No, there were athletes when Larry Bird played too. Larry Bird was a terrible athlete. He was a good athlete. He wasn't great, but his fundamentals were just as good, or if not better, than his ability. You know what I mean? Like, and so
hey, can you imagine Larry Bird getting to play iso ball like Luka just to make decisions? You couldn't play like that in the 80s because it would be frowned upon. Larry Bird would be a killer handling the basketball like Luka does playing hoops with iso ball. He would. He'd go for 30 and 10 every night.
Yeah, and he averaged like 6 or 7, not even handling the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So when people talk about this, like you said, this greater era of things, like I don't know if it's greater. Athletes are better, but the consistency is way down. The fundamentals are way down. Somebody is 60 and it's going to 5 games of scoring 15. Like it's crazy. So Andrew, what have you seen? I don't know if you watched a lot of college basketball. Like, you missed out on a good time, man.
Thanks. Rub it in.
Man, this is hey man, this is tough to watch. Like,
hey,
man,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, you know, I'll add this because
I appreciate it, Lance.
I told DB this during the break. I said, you know, in regards to a lot of teams in college basketball, it's almost like you have to alternate who shoots the ball.
You were talking about Creighton.
And I was talking about Creighton because they have 5 really good players on the floor, and you wanted more touches out of Trey Alexander. But it's like, well, when does Nembhard get his? Well, when does Shireman get his? When does Kaluma get his? When does Kalkbrenner get his? And because of that, is that a team game or is that, you know, just alternation? Because you're dealing with 5 really good guys on the floor. Mm-hmm. In the world of college basketball today, this is what I've noticed to really answer Lance's question. The best player on the floor or best 2 players, because a lot of teams have 2 really good players and then some more role players. Those are the guys that are involved in every single possession. And that's really it. In the past, at least in tape that I've seen, you could see the ball get spread around a little bit more. And it was maybe you are running a play instead of just trying to open up, create space for yourself and go.
Yeah, that's on the fly. That's interesting. I remember where and if you're just talking 90s, and it doesn't matter if it's college or the NBA, like you needed a good starting five.
And that's what I mean. Like Creighton is
So
a
I'm
good
valid-
starting
So
five.
I'm kind of with you on that, because if you had, it's like, well, if Mark Allery couldn't score, they wouldn't guard him, or until Tommy Amaker learned to shoot jump shot, like you needed.
Nowadays, you just know who's getting the ball.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of that's good. I'm kind of with you.
Especially on the great teams. Like even if you just we'll pick on the top 25. We'll pick on Purdue here. So Purdue has Edey. Everybody knows Edey's getting the ball. They have Lawyer. Everybody knows Lawyer can shoot the ball from outside. But then they have kind of like some surrounding guys that, could show up on any given night. But it's never like, hey, they're going to be involved in every single play.
Not to go all old man, get off my lawn, but it does seem like we're less patient to be a part of something. Like I remember I would say to myself, gosh, Rambis can't shoot. If you're gonna play them and Maxwell gets to play defense the way that he does for the Celtics, the Lakers are going to struggle. You have to find a way to this is what I used to say to myself, get Rambis some early paint touches just to score. And they had Kareem, Magic Coop, Byron Scott, and I'm worried about them taking advantage of a weak link. It's like, the Sixers had, with Moses and Cheeks and Andrew Toney, and we lament now over like a big three in the NBA. Like that's a big deal. The Celtics starting five in the 80s.
Because I was just thinking about Bosh,
The Celtics
Wade,
starting
and LeBron.
The Celtics starting five in the 80s could all be in the Hall of Fame. So it's like I don't know. I mean,
one of the best things about the 80s when it comes to college basketball and even the NBA was where it would take you like 3 or 4 years to build a team. So you would have a team that would get to the tournament, then that same team the next year may make it to the 16, and then by year 4, maybe they were champions. I mean, that was one of the things. I mean, you would watch teams develop over a 4-year period. You don't really have that now because your teams can develop, in an off season and be champions the next year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, though, is that double talk if I say I kind of like the ability to reboot on the fly, though?
In regards to players?
Yeah, like a basketball or even a football team. Look at what Nebraska did with their schedule.
Right.
Or their roster.
Right.
Like they
I know where you're getting at there.
So I kind of liked, because I don't want you to be stuck either.
No, and are you going back to college here now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. We like to see the new guys. We like to see the young guys that
I don't like to follow the transfer portal. Do you?
No, it's too messy. It's a lot. When I say messy, it's information. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of following along. And if you miss a day, you could really miss 3 guys that sign with your team.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to play catch up. But for the most part, I don't hate the reboot either. I really like the idea of, hey, you don't have to stick around in college all too long to make that next step if you so choose, if you're that good. Because there's always going to be another guy that's that good next.
I'm just looking at Cherokee Parks, Thomas Hill, Antonio Lang, Bobby Hurley. I mean, Grant Hill, Christian Leitner. Like there's not a lot of weak links there. Augman, Anderson Hunt, Ackles, Larry Johnson, Greg Anthony, like Arkansas trotting out Lee Mayberry, Todd Day, Corliss Williamson, Oliver Miller. Like it was hard to win if you had a weak link. I remember I was mad one time with Carolina when I felt like Pete Chilcutt was their best player. Now, this is way dating you, but I'm like, Pete Chilcutt is their best player. Like, I don't think we have a chance.
Hey, Lance chimes in on YouTube just to follow up from our conversation, which, Lance, we appreciate the call all the time. But he said, Andrew said, Creighton guys need to get their touches. Everyone got theirs in the 80s and 90s. What's the difference today? How would you touch on that
Style
from
of
the 80s and 90s to today?
It's definitely styles of play, because now I don't know what happened, but if you ask like basketball heads, like you could play in the 80s and the 90s without your point guard being able to score the basketball. He was a distributor. I don't think the way the game is played with space and the 3 ball, I don't think you can win big time college basketball games without your primary ball handler being able to shoot the ball. So if your primary ball handler doesn't have some sort of scoring capacity, he doesn't share it to get everybody else involved.
We appreciate the calls, 888-638-4876 if you'd like to get involved, because you spark conversation here on the show. Next, we're talking to Brian Christopherson. Stick around. Brian, good morning.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, BC. Did you have you allowed yourself to kind of soak up the fact that you're that the Twins could be pretty good if they stay, I know, healthy? They're one of my teams to watch because I like what they kind of tried to do in the offseason. What do you think? Are you going there, or are you like, this isn't 91?
I'm tilting toward optimism right now. Carlos Correa failed enough physicals to get back to us, and that helped. But the Twins actually have a deeper rotation than they usually do.
Yeah.
So for those who are doing their over/under bets, factor that in. I think they could be a mid 80s win, late or high 80s win type of team, but maybe that's being a little too bold. I don't know.
Hey, Brian, keep it with baseball here, just real fast. Based on everything that you've been seeing within the MLB and the rule changes for 2023, what are you in favor of, and what maybe annoys you about some of the changes?
You know what? I just got to be honest about it. I haven't followed everything very closely. So, I am a guy. I think Damon knows this. I have like the MLB package, and so I will watch my Twins pretty loyally. I'll probably watch 120, 125 games.
Yeah.
But during the off season, I have to say, I do know some of the moves the Twins have made, but I turn off a lot of the other noise about it, and that's probably not being a good fan or whatever. So I don't know all the specifics of what they've done or what they haven't done. The thing that, I know they want to play quicker,
Right,
and all that, but good luck is what I would say to that. Good luck. I just think baseball has worked itself to a pace where games are going to be 3 hours plus. It's not going to be a game that everyone runs to watch on their television set. It's just not going to be, but it is still going to be that game where people love to go to the ballpark and get up 3 or 4 times and go to the concession stand and come back, and a social sport. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I think I love watching baseball on TV far more than the general public, which is going to be hard to get back like they used to have. It's just going to be hard.
Well, you'll shave.
I can't wait to see a pitcher have to address the plate under 20 seconds with
That's
a runner
what I'm
on
saying.
scoring.
You shaved 20 minutes. This is great, right?
With a runner on base and a limited number of throw-over attempts to first base. I still think it's funny.
Okay.
BC, I think it was Alex Cora. Was it Cora that said the enlarged bases look like pizza boxes? Because the bases are
they're a little bigger.
I was looking for a pizza box GIF, and I couldn't find it, man. I think it's fascinating. Of all the rule, no shifts. I mean, how do you feel about no shifts, BC?
Okay. I was starting to grow on the shifts. I was starting to, feel like, hey, it's part of strategy. You got 9 guys, position them wherever you want to position them. If you want to put 7 guys right of second base and knock yourself out, so some hitters are going to love it. We're going to see some guys who couldn't hit against the shift who all of a sudden are, batting 290 again. So that'll be kind of funny to watch. But it'll be interesting to see those rules you suggested, how they really take and how they're enforced, and if they actually work as they hope they do. And I am looking forward to the pizza boxes too. So you guys clued me in. because I wasn't paying attention to any of this stuff. So I didn't. So I was just gonna turn it on opening day, and I'd see these
and just be
pizza boxes
surprised.
as the bases. Yeah, and it would have been a nice little surprise for me.
What's Domino's doing out there?
Yeah, I'm just telling you, BC, without any shifts, man, Polanco's going to hit like 308 for you. I'm kidding.
There you go. We'll take it then.
That's a separate conversation that we'll get into. But let's take advantage of BC now, because all we're doing now is just talking baseball when he's so much broader in other areas.
We won't pigeonhole you, BC.
Hey,
sorry about that.
No, sticking with maybe shaving down on things. Nebraska is in the process of shaving down walk-ons for the future, and it was something that was. I heard Mitch Sherman say this yesterday, romanticized, which I thought was kind of like a good term to use for that.
We like to wax poetic.
And the love and the affection for the walk-ons way back when, because you got a lot of use out of them, right? It worked. But nowadays they aren't seeing like a lot of that panning out. You get one or two here or there, but is it worth 40 or 50? What do you think? What are your thoughts on them shaving it down to a point to get it to where they want it to be?
I'm fine with it. You got to run your roster the way you see fit as a head coach. And I have always thought, like, having 150 guys over there, while I respect the effort, I thought, man, is that tough to manage or what? Like, how do you – I mean, I know some of those guys have to just be standing around even if you do run multiple stations. There's no way around it. There's just so many bodies. So I understand if you're like, let's knock this down to like 110, 115, something like that. And another thing about it is with the FCS programs growing the way they have over the last couple of decades, some of those walk-ons have ended up at South Dakota State, North Dakota State, more than they were in the early 90s, 80s, I think. And so that's changed the game too. The way Wyoming and some of those neighboring programs have recruited, I think that's changed the game with some walk-ons. So I'm okay if they knock it down, and because I think a lot of those guys are getting lost, and that your guys like Luke Reimer, who did technically arrive as a walk-on, those few exceptions I think can still exist. Like, there's still going to be those preferred walk-on types, or just be more limited in number, who you're like, oh man, that guy should have had a scholarship all along. So I still think there'll be some fun stories. Romanticize is a good word about it. That's something we probably have done with it, and I've done it at times, because everyone loves that story of the guy who, came, especially if it's from some small town school, and he works for 3 years and he builds himself up into the roster. And I hope a few of those stories still exist, but I can see where you want to get that number to something that's more manageable.
BC, and I know this is taboo because you kind of have to reference the 80s or the 90s, maybe for a frame of reference. But what do you think Nebraska fans would be willing to negotiate or compromise with, or maybe even give up for the sake of winning?
Well, stuff like that. I mean, like the walk-on is one example. I do think it's one. There are these little subtopics where we like to enjoy them in the off season, and you like to say, yeah, it's pretty cool that there's 145 guys and all these different towns are represented. But at the end of the day, when it gets to the season, it's like, what did you do on Saturday? So there are all these little subtopics that we sometimes bust out that are fun, but are you winning? That's what really matters. And I'm trying to think of a few other ones offhand, off the cuff, but they definitely do pop up on occasion where there's something that's sort of very Nebraska specific that we get fired up about.
What about letting guys? What about running guys off? Like not letting guys finish graduating or Remember, medicaling guys used to be like, well, quote unquote medical. You think we're okay? We're cool now with figuring out ways to not honor scholarships, even though you're supposed to.
Right. I think there's an understanding that you have to be a bit cutthroat. And I don't think we like to talk about it out loud around here very much. It's not a very Midwest nice thing, but I think it's understood in the back of people's minds that exists. And you know what's going on over there right now, I truly believe they are setting a particular standard in place through their workouts, and it's going to continue into the spring. And some people just aren't, it's not going to be their deal. You know, it's not going to be something where they feel like they want to be a part of it or they want to go somewhere else. And I think that's what this is all about right now is you figure out these are the guys that see that standard and it kind of fits what they want. And there are others who it won't. And that doesn't mean those guys are soft or anything like that. I'm not saying that. It's just like everybody sort of got their vision of what it's supposed to look like. And certain players are going to see after the spring, this isn't for me. So I think those numbers in a way might take care of themselves by the end of it.
You know, as we look forward to past 2023, the 2024 recruiting cycle has hit the ground running, or at least Matt Rule and his staff have hit the ground running there and had already done that even when they were recruiting the 2023 guys. But as you kind of followed or finished up that point, I wanted to gauge your thoughts on this in regards to what they're trying to do. Have you seen them kind of stick to the same routine in regards to who they're bringing in for 2024 and who they're offering as they did for 2023?
Well, I think you're going to see some big time recruiting showdowns in this cycle. I know we had fun sort of in December and January with like your Bryce Turners, your Jeremiah Charles stories, the guys who kind of popped up out of nowhere. But that late March weekend is going to be something serious with Dylan Raiola. Gatlin Bear is going to be here. Mario Buford, Thomas Heiberger, Peyton Lewis, a running back who's got a lot of attention late. That weekend is going to be loaded. And there's going to be guys here who Nebraska is going against elite schools to get. So I think that's setting it up for what we're going to see this cycle more and more. Is Nebraska is going to be in some big collisions with some programs that are very highly respected. So it's going to be pretty interesting.
BC, is quarterback, and we kind of talked about this a little bit with competition, and you wanted it. I know last week you wanted competition at all spots, including quarterback. You didn't really want any complacency, and I understand that. But how much does wants versus needs factor when you're looking at maybe stockpiling a depth chart on quarterbacks when we know that those guys don't stick around? Is it worth just going through however long it'll take till somebody decides this place isn't for them to roll the dice on trying to stockpile a quarterback room?
Well, I think with that, you have to have some hard conversations with some guys. And at the end of spring, if it's looking like, hey, you're maybe fifth or sixth, you just have to say that out loud, and they have to kind of look at it and sit. And I do think there comes that point where a guy has to say, it's going to be really tough for me to get on the field at this spot. And so at QB, yeah, the numbers are pretty loaded up right now. You kind of think, how can that stay as it is? And so I think it just has to be a candid deal where you say exactly what you're thinking by the end of the spring. And the player has to have an understanding that, yeah, this has been a fair process. They've given me a shot, but it's going to be difficult. And I mean, you have to, as a coach, just be straightforward with guys and trust that they're going to get the message, I think, on some of those deals.
Hey, keeping it with quarterbacks and Dylan Raiola in 2024, Todd Monken on the move yesterday, OC over at Georgia, who was a big piece of Raiola's recruitment. Not to say Kirby Smart hasn't been heavily involved either, but how do you think that impacts Raiola's recruitment for Georgia? And do you think it gives Nebraska an extra leg up now because he left, or are they still pretty balanced between USC, Georgia, Nebraska, Oregon, whoever else is in that mix?
I think who Georgia's bringing in still connects with the Raiola family. I don't think that's going to be a big factor as far as dismissing Georgia. I really don't. Steve Wiltfong, our national reporter, had a story about it the other day that suggested the Raiolas are still very tight with Georgia's staff and what they're doing there. So I don't think that particular move is going to shake it up and say, okay, that takes Georgia down 5 to 10 percentage points or something like that. I am still in that camp. I know my colleague Schaefer put out a crystal ball for Nebraska, and that got some attention.
Yeah.
I agree with what he put right now. I favor Nebraska at this moment, but I think it's still you got to keep doing your work on that one. It's recruiting, and that's he's going to take his visits in March, and Georgia is supposed to be one of them. That's the 2-time defending national champion, and I know Georgia has a quarterback already committed in that class, but they have said they are going to take 2 probably. Now I don't know what the Raiolas specifically think about all that and if they like that or not, but I sense that's a competitive family where that's not going to necessarily make them think, well, I don't want to take on that challenge. So I still view it as Nebraska, Georgia, USC, and right now, from just reading tea leaves, little things you hear, I like where Nebraska sits, but you can't be complacent, and you got to keep that relationship rolling the way it has been. But the thing people got to know is, yes, there's the family tie to Nebraska, and that means it's share. But it's the way Rule and staff have specifically, I think, connected with that family, been able to tell their vision and who they're about, that I think has Nebraska where it is right now. I don't think we should lose sight of that and act like it's just a family tied to Nebraska thing. It's a family tied to a coaching staff thing, I think, and believing in what they're telling them.
I'm sure that other coaches in contention, though, can convey that same message. But the one thing that Nebraska doesn't have going for them that Georgia and USC do is being in contention every year for a national championship. So how does Nebraska further convey that message?
Well, I think if you're Matt Rule, you say, hey, look at what we did at Baylor. I arrived there when there was 45 scholarship guys, and within 3 years we were winning 11 games and we were in the hunt. And that can happen in college football. You can flip things pretty quickly if you have all your ducks in a row, and Nebraska hasn't lately, and we've made it seem like it's very difficult to get to the Pinstripe Bowl around here. But I think if you have the right vision and you feel like you have a certain work ethic, you can communicate that to a player that, hey, if this is in place and you join this, you can be part of something special. You can be part of a turnaround of a proud program. And the one thing you don't have to convince the Raiolas about is the way you will be received if you are part of that turnaround in a place like this that cares so much about seeing that program get back to what it once was. And so that, I think, yes, Georgia and USC have different alluring qualities to their sales job. But I do think one of them for Nebraska can be that, yeah, it hasn't been great around here, but you can be a main part of the group that changes that story. And his dad knows full well what it looks like around here when it is great, and how special it can be in a football centric place like this.
BC, let me get you out of here on this. If you're this staff and you're looking at what the rest of the Big Ten's doing, do you think they can simultaneously start at a new school, look at the 2023 season, and factor in the conference realignment happening in 2024 in the same vision?
That's pretty hard. I mean, I admit it's going to be hard because you don't even know exactly the quadrant you're lined up with or how they're going to do it in the Big Ten in 24. So I think you just have to have sort of a base foundation established this year of this is how we do things. We're building an identity this season, and it's going to be the kind of thing that travels. It's going to be the kind of thing that can work whether you're playing against a certain schedule in 23 or however it shifts in 24 and 25. So I think it's all about getting that base floor kind of settled in this year and believing that you can tweak as you go, but you got to have that foundation first of all.
Brian, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much this morning, and we'll talk again next week.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
Thanks, B.
That is Brian Christopherson at Husker247 BC on Twitter.
I kind of think they can do it in one fell swoop. I really do. Like, I don't know though. Can I put together can I start building my program, turn the roster over, and be ready for 2023 and 2024 on the fly? Doesn't it seem like that's what they're doing though?
They make you feel that way. Is it a feeling or is it reality?
God.
That's what I'm like.
It would be incredibly difficult, but in one vein, just think about this for a second. You're thinking about beating some new form of the air raid in Wisconsin, which you have no idea what it's going to look like. You think you have a good idea how Minnesota wants to play. Purdue's going to look extremely different.
Vastly different.
Illinois
is going to look
Illinois
different.
will look different, right? Iowa potentially could look different. Now, I know Brian is still there, but you have some new pieces, and you're a year older. And that was arguably probably the worst offensive line that they'll have in the last decade.
That defense could even get better than they were.
Yeah, which is going to be tough without Van Ness and Campbell. And, I mean, you're losing Moss, which is a stud in the secondaries. But it is Iowa, right? So you're like, okay, it could be plug and play. And then in the same vein, well, we could be going to this pod system. SC and UCLA are coming. We need to recruit. So I say the reason why I think it's hard is because I don't think you can fast forward to 2024, but you have to be building with long-term vision in mind anyway. But it's such a program and staff, and I heard Campbell say it again the other day, that talks about just winning the day, falling in love with the process of the day, and leave the big picture stuff to the staff.
Right.
It's going to be fascinating because it's going to happen quick.
Recruiting for themselves. That's what I think they'll do regardless. I don't think they're going to try to recruit for the future and what it could look like.
Whatever it is that fits them.
They're just recruiting for what they want to do at Nebraska. Whether it fits the whole idea of the air raid or what, USC is bringing in or UCLA or whatever we're about to see in 2023, they'll sit back at the end of the day and say, we did it our way. And I don't want to be like Frank Sinatra when I say that.
But I think there's
a
hint of the truth to that, though. That's because without divisions per se in a year,
I'm a big proponent of
I just
doing
don't think you just can't get distracted by that.
You do you. If you let other factors play into your life,
that's a T-shirt. You do you, boo.
If you let other factors play into your life, now you're getting away from everything that you value. And Nebraska values, if they had a checklist of 5 things, they will never take those 5 things off. They may add to it, but they will never
just
take
like
their values
the core
off.
5?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's going to be interesting to watch unfold because you're right dab smack in the 2023 season right now.
Which is crazy.
I know, right?
It is nuts.
That's what
we talk about a blink of an eye in sports.
Yeah, it's here.
Right off the start of the show.
You'll be starting spring ball in a month.
It's insane to think about. Just 2 days removed from the Super Bowl. Andy Kendeigh coming up next. He's the sports director at KETV. Well, DB's here, and Andy Kendeigh also on the line. Andy Kendeigh is our guy over at KETV, the sports director over there, and we love talking to him every other week. Andy, good morning, man.
Good morning, fellas.
AK,
you know what?
State
Wrestling. There's a big storm coming.
Isn't that something? Wow. See, go ahead, AK, Mister. Bring it all down. I forgot all about that, but man, are you spot on? Did you?
It happens every year.
Isn't that crazy? It's like, so here's the deal, though.
And only TV guys would remember that.
What's Bill saying? Was he the 2.5 to 3.5 guy?
Well, at the beginning he was, but I think the bigger issue too is to the south, and they're supposed to get even more. And how about those kids traveling from south of Omaha, southwest of Omaha, trying to get to it? You just kind of have to adapt and adjust, and the show normally goes on. Actually, it always goes on. So we'll see what happens.
Mr. Levity, Andy Kendeigh.
Mhm.
Good job,
You know
AK.
what, though?
Go.
Hey, let me bring you up this point. Let's go back about, I don't know, a month, where we thought that Snowmageddon was going to hit, and it didn't. So these things.
So it's
you
due.
gotta take these things with a grain of salt, right? You just kind of, we're tough. We've been through this before. We know the drill. We'll figure it out.
Hey, speaking of tough, the streak snapped on the hardwood last night for the Big East team here in town, Creighton. There's one person to blame in all of this, though. That's the guy sitting to my left, because he said they wouldn't lose until March. I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show. But you know what? I'm not even going to go down that road.
It's okay.
Even though I kind of already
look up on March the 4th, actually the morning of March the 5th, and Creighton will have ran the table.
That is my good friend DB.
I
wasn't
go
gonna
ahead
go that
and
far.
encourage him.
I wasn't
AK,
gonna go
laugh,
that far.
yuck it up.
Shane helped me get there, I guess. He had to drive the other half of the way. But AK, here's the question, because DB asked me if I'm into the jinx. Are you a buyer or a seller when it comes to the jinx?
I'm selling. I don't, I thought of this the other day. Like, does it matter if you're wearing the same coat watching a game? No. Does it really matter? I don't think so. So
Tell that to Matt Coatney.
Yeah.
Hey, he's hilarious.
I mean, it just, some things just, I'll tell you what I'm a bigger proponent of. That was one of the best regular season college basketball games. Forget about the dog in the fight, right? If you're just watching college basketball, I had a buddy of mine text me and he said, man, this Creighton Providence game, this is like unbelievable basketball. Guys are diving all over the floor, giving it their all for a regular season game. That was pretty special to see. And, Creighton, DB, if they hit a shot at the end of regular season,
I know, man.
Hit it at the end of the first OT, you're looking pretty, because, their schedule, you look at it on the way out, St. John's, Marquette at home, at Villanova, Georgetown at home, at DePaul. I mean, that's doable.
He did say Providence was his scare.
Providence was the one team that scared me. But listen, if you asked me, if you'd have said, if I said, hey, AK, Providence is going to make 8 threes, Creighton's going to make 7, who wins? What would you have said?
Well, I would have definitely said that Creighton would be toe-to-toe with them, no question. The only thing is that they are so good at home, man. Providence is so tough at home. They've won, 35 of their last 36 or 34 of 35, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, that's just something to keep an eye on. Creighton's starting 5, minutes played, 49, 47, 47, 47, 46. Those guys brought it last night. Good thing they don't play until Saturday to get time to regroup, but woo, that's a lot of minutes.
I was surprised that Providence only turned the ball over 7 times, and that thing got to overtime. They maybe feel like they left something out there too.
No question, no doubt. I mean, that was just a great basketball game, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Max said it after the game. He said, the other day against Saturday, the kid's foot was on the 3-point line. It turned into a 2. Instead of a tie game, the Creighton has the lead. And then last night, Kaluma's alley-oop just gets tipped off right before he grabs it. So, it can go either way. And unfortunately, last night, Creighton just went the other way.
Flip it around. How impressive was, I mean, we know what happens at, Jersey Subs, Mike's place, formerly known as the Rack. 14-2 at the house until last night, man. You got to be shaking your head like, how impressive is it that these guys, they pulled a rock, didn't they? They know their role and they shut their mouth.
Yeah, no question. And Nebraska has a guy on their team that if he was on the opposition, you would dislike him, would you not? Keisei Tominaga.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy gets it done for Nebraska, and he's just one of those guys saying, "How does he do it?" But he does it. And if you're playing against him, you're like, "Oh!" He just probably drives you nuts. But I'll tell you, between Derek Walker, Griesel, Tominaga, they found something there. In a little Sam Hoiberg getting
How about Wilchers?
Jersey,
Come on,
yeah,
CJ.
The Jersey boys, the two kids from Plainfield, New Jersey, and Wilcher and Lawrence. A happy homecoming for them. Wilcher found his shooting stroke at the right time with 5 threes last night. It was fun to see. Tip of the cap to Fred Hoiberg. You know, you can now start talking, you know, look at the schedule and say, can they get over 500, get into a postseason tournament? And that would set a nice foundation moving forward for a team that I don't think many people thought they would be here at this point.
Oh, no, people wrote them off. I mean, just weeks ago, we were talking about if Fred Hoiberg, maybe it was 1 week ago. Yeah, maybe 1 week ago, we were talking about if Hoiberg was going to be
we needed Coach Alberts.
Right.
Yeah.
Trev,
right.
We needed the radio show for validation. Hoiberg's come back.
Like, yeah, you guys get it. I'm sure I got it yesterday, even the day before. Is Coach Hoiberg, is he going to make it? Yeah, he's going to make it. He's just fine, thank you. The guy can coach, even if he has to totally do a 180 in his coaching philosophy and how basketball is played.
I mean, the way that they're playing, as hot as they are, and I'm not saying that they're going to take over the Big Ten, but they could make a run in the Big Ten tournament. They could make it to the NIT potentially. Like, there's hope for things. There is hope. Maybe that's Kool-Aid drinking, but there's hope.
I'm just trying to win the next one. AK, let me ask you real quick locally. Bigger story, the fact that once again, Millard South's got 4 in a row. The whole lineup qualifies for state, which is ridiculous. Or the fact that girls wrestling is blowing up. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Well, a whole host of things. It's one of the great events in Nebraska, right? And now it's even gotten better because you add the girls wrestling element to it. It's a madhouse. It's a fun house. It is one of those events that if you haven't been, you should go, right? I mean, especially Championship Saturday. The Adams thing is unbelievable. Watching somebody as special as him, and don't forget about Lauritsen at Bennington,
is a stud.
And he's going to bring it too. And the girls element is fantastic. But man, there's some individuals going after it, and some compelling storylines. Ellie French had a nice story this week on the Bennington siblings. A girl and a boy from the same family going to state, and those are the types of stories that high school sports this time of year are all about. It's about trying to achieve the best and making memories for a lifetime, because these kids, this is the time to shine, and this is their one time to shine, right? I mean, you only get one chance to be in high school and go after a state title.
How hard is it this early not to pencil in Tyson Terry for 4 straight? He looks unstoppable.
Right? Knock on wood.
It's
Kid
like
stays healthy. Yeah.
He's such a monster, and it's like he's running through this class, and he's still just a sophomore.
Right. And he's got to juggle too. I mean, he'll play football in college.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yeah. And I think he's just now starting to fall in love with the fact he could be an all conference offensive lineman too. So he's going to have plenty of options.
Well, that's good. Well, it's going to be a pleasure watching him moving forward. No question.
Hey, are you editing all your stuff from CHI, or are you doing that back at the station?
A little of both.
Good luck to you.
All right, Mr. Talented.
I remember my stuff not sending back when I worked in sports, so I get it if that happens, AK. Hey, we're talking to Evan Porter next. Hey, welcome back to Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us here on the show, and happy to now make a couple of baseball segments a part of our.
Oh, you're tickled.
I am tickled.
I'll just text Coach if he's running behind.
I did.
Is that what you'll do, buddy?
I said, if Porter is running behind, I'll shoot him a text. I'll see if he's ready to go. Coach, it's good to hear from you, man. What's going on?
How's it going, fellas?
We're hanging in there. I know it's rough being everybody's favorite. It's like
You and those are my people.
Does anybody utter a negative word about Coach Porter? Coach P, I do want to know though, because you're a straight shooter. You're a good enough guy, and you're everywhere, especially when it comes to recruiting. Metro coaches love you. The program, new ballpark. Shouldn't we talk to you more than just a couple of times a year when the season starts? Like, do you want to just tell us, hey guys, get your act together? I'm pretty interesting, and my teams we're going to be okay.
Well, it sounds like Andrew's got my phone number, so you can just shoot me a text anytime.
Hey, anytime, right, Coach? Hey, the overall record last season just did not properly depict how well this Mavericks team played. I mean, on numerous occasions, the Mavs got wins. Many wrote them off before the game even started. And to me, here's how last season felt. The inconsistencies revolved around the offense, even when the offense, or either the offense was there, I should say, or it wasn't. But the consistencies seemed to revolve around pitching, and Caleb Rydell was a big reason for that. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that assessment? And if so, how'd you go about the offseason turning the inconsistencies into consistencies?
I think you're spot on, Andrew. We underperformed offensively last year, and ultimately that's my fault to get these guys ready to get up in the batter's box. But our coaches did a really good job this offseason of recruiting some guys that can protect a guy like Mike Bovey, and so they can't pitch around him, and some guys that are pretty athletic who know how to get on base without just getting a hit. Whether they're working walks, hit by pitches. And then situational hitting, I think we're a little bit better this year, where we can get guys on and get them over and get them in. So, I think you're spot on, and hopefully our offense shows a little bit better this season. And like you said, Caleb Rydell was great for us, starting every Friday night. We had a couple seniors with Joey Machado and Mark Timmons that added to that consistency in our pitching staff. And we've got quite a few guys back from our staff last year, and hopefully we can find that same consistency on the mound.
And I promise we didn't rehearse this, and you'll know by my follow-up question. Drew down, Andrew, he wants to know about how we can establish offense. I'm wondering how, if you know your team so well, are you not gravitating towards falling in love with just scoring enough, right? You got Harrison, no bias. I know West Side grad, everybody's like, no, with Harrison and Charlie and with Preston and those guys, like, you can get guys out. It was the strength of your team last year. How do you keep yourself from saying, okay, I got to know my ball club. If we just do this, we'll be fine. And you coach that way.
Sure. That's a really good question. I think every year it's different. This year, we're probably one of the very few programs in the country. We don't have a true freshman or a true sophomore.
Yeah, you got old in a hurry, didn't you?
Yeah, I think our youngest guys are still 21 years old, so we'll be leaning on experience more so this season, and that's kind of how our team was showing itself in the fall, where it was just an attitude where you're going to come to practice and get your work in, and there's not too many emotions involved. We're going to stay even keel. And hopefully that shows itself this spring.
Coach Mike Bovey, I mean, coaching a guy like him, where the sky's the limit, must just be so fulfilling for you. But how do you balance expectation and immediacy with a guy like Mike to keep the pressure off of him, but at the same time pushing him to reach his full potential?
Yeah, Mike's like you said, he's a wonderful human being. He's the last guy off the bus after a road trip, making sure all the trash is picked up and always picking up his teammates in the dugout. And I think that helps him keep that, balance. That he had a lot of hype on him last year as a sophomore, and he handled it so well. And he's taken that same approach into this year, this being his draft year. Hopefully in a few months this summer, his name's getting called pretty high in the draft. And so I know a lot of pressure can come with that, but he is such a mature kid. His dad was the head coach for Hastings College for over 20 years, and you can really see that in the way Mike carries himself, where he's he's a confident guy, but he's not cocky. He knows himself, his swing, his game so well that he prepares the same way every day, whether he's had a good day or bad day at the plate the day before. And I think that's what's going to help him not only this spring, but it's going to just skyrocket him through whatever organization is lucky enough to have him this summer.
I think at this time last year, you and I, we were talking about Jackson Gordon and kind of what he brings to the table, kind of the do everything, the consummate professional. I know Potter's on the back end. You got Nebraska City's finest in Bales, who's coming over from Houston Baptist. So how do you like how the back end kind of shapes up for you if you can improve upon the runs per game? You like your starting arms. How do you like the back end kind of being able to close the door?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a few guys right there with Gordo, Brennan Bales, Alex Potter. Those guys will all be options at the end of the game. Wyatt Sellers is another one. He's a returner.
Yeah.
If we can stay healthy, that'll be kind of the biggest key, I think, to allowing us to have, all the options on the table when we got a lead late in the ball game to go to those guys. So I think staying healthy will be a big factor for us and how we can close out some games, and that'll allow us to use a guy like Brennan Bales twice a weekend instead of just maybe bridging a longer outing on a Friday or Saturday. If we can stay healthy, we won't have to use him in that role, if that makes sense.
Coach, I got to brag on you a little bit. Listen, I joked earlier, everybody sings your praises. They do, right? Highly respected. Mm-hmm. You're booing the 2019 season. You get the new ballpark. You got to deal with COVID. Last year in 2022 didn't go the way you wanted to. I had lunch with your athletic director a couple weeks ago. And not only is he really, really bright and engaging, but the words of affirmation he used in talking about what your personality, your presence, your vision brings to the program. When you pit that against the backdrop of having the great ballpark and Baxter and a boss that's obviously for you, a community that wants to embrace a winner, how do you stay grounded? Who keeps you level-headed? Like, how do you not fall in love with Coach Porter when everybody else is?
Well, I could get my wife on the phone. We're about to take off. We got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old at home, so she might have some words on that. But no, Adrian has been nothing but wonderful since he's started about a little over a year ago, and he's been so supportive of me and my staff, and he's the type of leader he'll say after every head coach meeting or whenever you see him in the hallway, "Hey, how can I help you? Just let me know." And he really means it too. So it's great having a leader like that. The team he's put together with Mike West, Matt Maher, our CFO, Brock Wismiller, fundraising. It's just been a breath of, a lot of energy right now coming through the department, and they've been super helpful for us. And I think we've raised more money this year,
Good for you.
fundraising than any year in the past, and that's due to Brock Wismiller, a fundraising guy, and we're selling more tickets because of Mike West, and Matt Maher's helping us expand our budgets and all those things. So Adrian's team is, they're awesome. And then you got academic people like Lindsay Ekereklu, Danny Brooke, Courtney Speakman helping our student athletes reach their potential academically. We're just surrounded by really good and talented people, and it's really fun to go to work every day.
Man, I'll get you out of here on this, and you just nailed Lindsay's last name, and I'm kind of
it's impressive.
I mean, that last name I never got while I was at
Hey,
UNO.
she's a stud.
She is. But tell me this, because a quick follow-up: personality, it not only with you, but the trickle-down effect to the team. The personality of this team is just, it's energy up all the time. Speak to the team camaraderie, because we talk about it a lot with other schools in the state, but in particular your group.
Well, I think, Damon mentioned guys like Jackson Gordon. Jackson is, he's
the
consummate
5th-year
team senior
guy
this year, and he's never been in a bad mood in his life, I don't think.
He's amazing.
And, we've got a few more of those guys on the team where when you're playing college athletics, this is what we kind of tell every high schooler on the recruiting pitch. You might seem close with your high school team now, and once you get to college, it's going to be amplified so much more because you're living together, you're going to class together, weights, bus trips, plane trips, all those things. Just, you want to be around guys that you like. And I kind of take that approach when we're recruiting is we want to be around guys we like as coaches. And if you're around enough good dudes, you're going to get through those challenging times that every season brings and a lot quicker if that weren't the case. So we've got some really good players on our team.
Benning.
More importantly, we've got some good people.
Coach, fantastic.
Coach, we appreciate you, man. Good luck this Friday at UCLA. And then, I got to tell you, I'm really excited when you return home on February 28th against K-State. I'll be there.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
And we appreciate Coach Evan Porter on the show. He's the head coach over at Omaha. Coming up next, though, maybe we go right across the street. Let's talk to Ed Servais, head baseball coach at Creighton. He's next on Coffee and Cream. Hey, top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream, 9 a.m. if you are playing along at home. And hey, I have some updated details for you about the show. So we had some confusion on whether or not we were in Lincoln this morning, and we aren't in Lincoln until now, from now on. So from 9 to 10, we will be on KFOR, which is 101.5 FM, 1240 a.m. That's where you can find us now in Lincoln. It's the last hour. There were some changes that happened. It was out of our control. So if you are looking for the show, you can either catch us on Twitter. You can catch us on YouTube if you're up in Lincoln. If obviously you're here in town in Omaha, we're on 590 AM ESPN Omaha. But from 9 to 10, from this point forward, it's KFOR in Lincoln, 101.5 FM, 1240 AM. We'll keep updating you on that just to remind you. But if you don't hear us for the first 2 hours, that's why.
Wow, with all that clarity, you kind of sound like our next guest.
Really?
A little bit. He not a lot of mixed messages with this guy.
He is Ed Servais, and let's just say Creighton baseball has been pretty good as of late. He's the head coach over there at Creighton. Ed, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Coach, how are you, man? It is so good to talk to you.
You know what? I'm feeling great, and I'm excited. The weather's going to get bad here, and we're going to get out of town, so that's good. So
lucky.
Can I stay right there? Because one of the things that I did, we just played, my knucklehead son was playing hoops in the summer a year and a half ago, and we were in Atlanta, and we went over to we wanted to see Kennesaw. We wanted to see a couple of other facilities around town, and everybody was like, you got to see McNeese State. You got to see McNeese State. And I said, well, I'm not really in the area, but what makes McNeese State pretty cool? And he said, the guy was telling me, and because he's trying to pattern their facilities an awful lot what McNeese State does, and he kept saying quietly they love their sports. Does it get your meter going that you're out, you're on the road, you're at McNeese State, or is it just the fact that it's open? It's an opener, and you would be excited if you were coming to, Baxter to play Omaha, right? Is it what is Coach Servais? What gets him going?
Well, we've been down to McNeese before, and I was really impressed. So the folks who were talking to you were right. They do love their sports down there. They have, they have their dugout club, and they're barbecuing before the game starts. And
that's what he said.
They have a lot of pride in their stadium because it's, when you walk into a stadium, the first thing I notice is it clean? And if it is, there's a lot of pride involved with this program. And when we went down there in 19, it was spotless. We went in to work out at night before we played the next day, and I was really, really impressed with their setup. They have a young coach who's done a great job down there, so it's going to be a battle for us. But we're walking into an environment I think our players will enjoy.
Coach, keep it right there before we talk about the team in particular, because I'm just kind of curious now. As you travel around to a bunch of different facilities, different stadiums, do they ever compare or compete with what you get every single day here in town?
No.
Thank you for being honest.
As nice as these places are, they don't even get close to what we have here. Not only the field itself, but the locker rooms, the dugout, the places where players can spend some time before the game. we can eat and all that stuff. It's not even close. So as nice as it is at McNeese State, and we play at some great venues, some really outstanding venues, they don't come close to what we have here at Charles Schwab. That's for sure.
We'll get to the five preseason all conference selections in the team, but let me ask you one more question about the schedule, because I know you're competitive. I know you want the best. I know you're always thinking long term, and you're going to get a great environment at McNeese. Coastal will be exciting. I think you go to Cal State, Northridge. When you look at the early season slate, dealing with the weather, and I know you don't like to talk about it a ton and make excuses, but with the opener to the season, do you like the way that the schedule will break out for you in terms of being able to have some sort of a mini forecast?
Well, in a perfect world, I would like to start in like the state of Arkansas, because maybe the weather there is going to be 45 to 50 degrees.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more closer to what we're going to play the bulk of our season in. I've never been a fan of going to like Miami, Florida, or to the warm climate areas, even though you're probably guaranteed to play games. We don't play a lot of baseball games at Creighton in 85-degree weather in the springtime. So my job as a coach is to prepare ourselves for the bulk of our season, our conference season. So that includes weather. So I'm trying to put our guys in an environment that's similar to what they're going to see. So down in Louisiana this weekend, we're going to see 50s. So that's kind of conducive to what we're going to see up here when we get into April and May. So it's not too far away from the same kind of conditions that I think the bulk of our games are going to be played in. But we try to look at that. But whenever I get a chance to play at Coastal Carolina, we're going to jump on that. So that had nothing to do with climate. That all had to do with the type of team.
Yeah, that's heck of an environment.
The type of program they are,
It's a great way to lay it out, because, you would think a lot of times you would want the reps more than you would want the environment. But I liked the case that you made there, Coach. We're talking to Ed Servais, head baseball coach over at Creighton. Let's talk about the team now. The squad enters the 2023 season, picked to finish second in the conference with 5 preseason all Big East selections, as my co-host DB pointed out. That's the most of any team in the Big East. Where do you think this team's strength lies? Would you say pitching, hitting, or defense?
I would say depth. I would go a step further. I would say the depth of the team, and it's something that we really have never had a ton of here. We've always had good frontline players, but if we lost a player and it's due to happen, injuries are part of the game, that sometimes we just didn't have another person to fill in, and there was a little bit of a drop-off. So this year's team, and COVID has a lot to do with it, the rosters have been expanded to 40 men, so we have much more depth. I believe we have 14 pitchers that can get Division I hitters out. Normally, a normal year for us would be 10, 11, 12. So I think we have some additional guys there. We have about 13 or 14 positional players that are likely to be interchangeable. We've not had that in the past. So I think the depth is going to be the strength of this team from a coaching standpoint. I think sometimes the players, they don't like depth. They want to be one shortstop out there. They want one center fielder out there so they know they're going to play every game. But from a coaching standpoint, you always want to develop depth, and I think we have that this year.
That's a fantastic segue. Early, we opened the show talking about how coaches a lot of times talk about they want versatility and the ability to do different things. And we were talking about your basketball team over there at Creighton and guys getting shots and having options. And I said, it really works if your culture is good and guys believe that they'll always have their opportunity, because it's hard to stay ready when you're not the one needing to be ready, right? It's always good to talk about having options until you're the guy that's the other option. How do you feel like the level of understanding? Because you can play. Shoot, I just look at let's just take 2 guys. Just look at Grace and Megs, kind of different kind of hitters, how they want to play. Your lineup, you can play a ton of different ways, right? You can hit and run. You can hit for power. You can chop at the gap. Guys have to embrace their role. How do you feel your team's temperament will embrace the different ways that you can play?
Well, I really like our upperclassmen. This is actually one of my favorite teams, and I've been doing it for
Nice.
quite a while now. And
Yeah.
I've told them that several times. They're very low drama. They want to be coached. They're willing to accept roles, even though it may have been different than a role they had last year. But I think the key to all of this is communication. And I try to communicate. I try to be as honest as I can with our players. I always tell them the only thing I'm not going to share with you is budget. You do not need to know anything about the budget. That's an administrative thing. I'll take care of that. But everything else I'm going to share with you as to why we do what we do, whether it be a practice situation or whether it be a game. We like to talk a lot after games about, hey, this is why we did what we did in the 6th inning. This is why we did what we did in the 8th inning. So, because it's their program, and I want them to have ownership. And I think if I can communicate that to them, they will take that ownership. And we have a great group of older players. You mentioned 2 of them, Andrew Meggs and Jack Grace. It's been a lot of fun to get to know these guys even better. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen here starting Friday when the season starts.
Coach, you talk about depth, and one position that you really haven't needed depth was the guy coming out of the pen to close out games. And he was dominant for the team in 2022. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about T-Tom.
Yes.
I'm talking about Tommy. And all great teams have that automatic out of the pen to close games. And like he fills those shoes nicely. How big is it having him back as a graduate student, utilizing every bit of his time that he was given to play college ball?
Huge, and we put a heavy emphasis on our bullpen. We always have.
Yeah.
We've always been fortunate to have guys at the back end that were fearless, that were competitors, and could get outs. Because those outs are different at the back end. Those are much different. They're high stressful situations. And Tommy thrives on that. Matter of fact, he doesn't do well when I put him in a game if we have a 5-run lead. That's when he struggles. He does much better in those tied games, 1-run lead type of scenarios. And the interesting thing about him is he could pitch 3 innings and give us 9 outs, or he could pitch 2 out, the 9th inning and get 2 outs. He's got a lot of versatility. You don't often see that in guys at the back end. They can only pitch 1 inning, but Tommy brings a ton of versatility to us. He's almost a bullpen in himself, because we use him in such a different, we'll use him in the 7th inning on Friday if we get a chance to win that game. And he'll be disappointed if I take him out. He wants to finish games. So he's a unique guy, ultra competitive, a lot of fun to be around because I like competitive people, and great teammate too. So we just got to keep him healthy. I'm tempted to use him every game, and we just got to keep him healthy as we go through the season.
Coach, I'm curious to get your answer because you can be a philosopher when you want to. How do you have a veteran team, and you don't sugarcoat anything. You're super transparent. How do you not talk about the Big East finals a year ago in the championship and not have it relate to this season? Do you flush it? Do you address it because you have a veteran team that knows where they want to be, where they were a game away from being a year ago? How does that work with your communication dynamics?
We've addressed it just very briefly,
Mm-hmm.
and I've tried to use it just as a way to motivate them, just as a way to say, hey, this is what happened now. Do we want that situation to happen again? If we're not interested in that, then we got to take a different path. Our preparation has to be different. Our preparation has to be better. Not just that last week of the season, but, every opportunity we get to practice. And the really fun thing about this team, and there's many fun things about it, is you can say stuff like that to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're very mature. We have 9 graduate students.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd have 1, let alone 9 on one team. So it's a lot more fun. I can communicate to them. I don't have to worry about, am I hurting somebody's feelings or not? Because they know where I'm coming from too. We're all pulling in the same direction. And we don't talk about it often, but I have used it once or twice just as a way to get them refocused and motivated as to we don't want that to happen again.
Coach, last year the NCAA tournament bid came up short in the Big East championship, but preseason expectation pencils you back in that spot to avenge last season's feat. The goal is always to make it to the CWS, but as you know, it's not a marathon, as you know, it is a marathon, I should say. It's not a sprint. What goals have you set forth for this team this year to help you get there?
Well, we want to get off to a little bit better start. And we've conveyed this to our players that at Creighton University, every game is important. Sometimes if you're the bigger school down south or whatever, you can kind of play into your season a little bit, knowing that you're going to get an opportunity to go to a regional, you're going to have an opportunity to potentially host a regional. At Creighton University, you look at things a lot differently. We cannot play into our season. We must find a way to play it better early. And I'm optimistic because the weather has allowed us to get outside a little bit more this year than some years. So I think we're a little bit better prepared to potentially get off to a faster start. But I think if we'd have got off to a faster start last year, we might have had a chance to do something besides, you must win the conference tournament, otherwise you don't advance. And that's what the 2019 team did. They really did a great job with those non-conference games, and they set themselves up going to the conference tournament where they didn't necessarily have to win it to continue to play. And that's always been our goal. So in order for that to happen, we got to play better early.
All right, one more, Coach. I promise. I fibbed on the last one just because I gotta take advantage of the topical smarts. A couple of the teams that we've talked to, Omaha, they don't have a true freshman or a sophomore. Coach Bold, he's going to start. He's got 5 fifth-year seniors on the bump alone. You guys, veteran, you've talked about it. You're an old, mature ball club. Is this a COVID thing, or is this something that you think is sustainable to get old and be old, as there's a lot of mature teams in college baseball?
Yes, there is. And there's a lot of reasons for that. COVID is one. But the fact that Major League Baseball now only has 20 rounds is another reason. And then the other reason is players are realizing that we do a really good job at the college level in developing players. And then the player now only spends maybe 1 or 2 years in the minor leagues, where he used to spend 4 or 5 years in a minor league. So he'd rather spend it at the college level than in the pro game because, let's face it, the college athlete gets treated pretty well nowadays. So I think there's a lot of reasons why they're staying longer, but COVID would be at the top of the list. But I think the Major League Draft, having whittled it down to 20 rounds now, there's less opportunities for these guys to go on to the pro game, unless you see a lot more seniors and fifth-year seniors playing the game. And it's been a better game for us because of that. So it's been a win-win for the college programs to have these older players in our program.
Safe to say those that have kind of thought ahead maybe a year or two can recalibrate the quickest, because the rosters will reset. It's not just baseball. It's a lot of college sports that will have to reset and recalibrate recruiting after this final year. Is it a year process? Is it a 2 process or 2 year? Or is it, hey, you know what? We've already been thinking about this. I understand what we've got to be able to help supplement in the portal as well.
Well, you're right. It's going to flush its way through here soon, and we're going to be back to what we consider to be normal before COVID. But then you throw in, and you mentioned the transfer portal. That is going to change everything again, because I feel bad sometimes for the high school athlete because they're getting overlooked now, and a lot of programs are saying, okay, if we need 4 players for next year's roster, let's go to the transfer portal and get those 4 guys. Because I don't want to really get engaged in developing young players like you have to when you bring a high schooler or a freshman into your program. We're never going to go that route. I like a little bit of blend. I like to work with the young players. I like to have the players in our program for 3, 4, 5 years, because then they know me, I know them. It just works better that way. Sometimes when you get a grad guy, as good as they may be, there's still an adjustment period. And usually during that adjustment period, not a lot of good things are taking place. So we're gonna try to continue to recruit high school players, and then we'll pluck up the transfer portal guy every once in a while. But I think that transfer thing is we don't know quite the impact that has on baseball quite yet. We're probably going to have to see it through another year or two before we really fully appreciate the impact of the transfer portal in baseball.
God, fantastic stuff,
Coach, we appreciate your thoughts. We appreciate your knowledge, and good luck this Friday.
Best wishes, Coach.
Hey, thanks much, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Coach. That's Coach Ed Servais, head coach over at Creighton Baseball.
That's fantastic.
Very deep. Very, I really do mean
I love our,
knowledgeable.
I just love our baseball guys.
When it comes to like breaking down, like you guys were talking about the transfer portal and how it's easier not to have to develop somebody when you're looking maybe and if you're in win now mode, you're not going to go to high school. You're going to go to the transfer portal, and it's just a different age.
And what are the odds? Whether you're Bellevue, Omaha, Creighton, Nebraska, these are older baseball teams, and you're kind of looking around and I can't help but to kind of go back to something Coach Frost said about wanting to get old and stay old. And I just wonder how long it will take to recalibrate the COVID years to reset the rosters without killing
just in general
the high school. No, I'm
so
it's just on my mind, right? So I'm trying to
it's been on my mind since COVID started. When you add the year and you take away scholarships here.
Yeah, I'm looking at guys like Dominic, guys that came over, from Notre Dame. He's a Fremont Bergen guy in high school in New Jersey, and I'm just looking at his. I think he's going to be he's going to be a junior for Creighton. I think he's played like 3 years of college baseball, a sophomore, I should say, and he's played 3 years of college baseball. And I'm just like, how long will it take for that to reset?
Mm-hmm. It's a great thought.
That's why I always look at Nebraska scholarship distribution chart in football, right? They're going to end up having single-digit number of seniors before it's all said and done. My guess, it's going to be you have single-digit seniors. That's crazy if you're in high school wanting to go to school.
It turns a lot of kids off sometimes.
Well, I think basketball is probably the most difficult to
because
people
roster
just
size.
Flip it around, and it's hard to be a tweener high school player and get those offers. But
it's also hard
to
find room, right?
Yeah,
like you can be a bench guy. There's a lot of coaches that welcome you to be. Hey, you're essentially here for practice, right?
And the one thing I didn't think of that he said, which is why it's above my pay grade. See, the draft being only 20 rounds now, that's one thing I did not think of off the top. I'm like, these rosters are going to have to turn around. I'm just looking at some of these teams and their power rankings and how old they are. I'm like, this is weird. We heard Coach Bolt say, well, we have X amount of fifth-year seniors, which is odd in our game. It's kind of cool now to be a junior in college. How would you like to be Toppin? Now, his team isn't very good in Kentucky, but 3 years ago, it'd be like, too old, been in the game too long, man. He's tarnished. But now you kind of want some veterans because you're playing against grown-ups.
Right. And you're in that age to where you're playing against experience now.
Yeah.
You're playing against guys that have been there, done that for 4+ years. If you bring in young talent, sometimes the game translates.
You're literally playing 18 versus 23.
Right. And sometimes it translates for the best ones. If you're the most talented on the floor, more times than not, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. You're just the most talented.
And just imagine, it matters in high school, which is why you see so many people reclass, right? I mean, Isaiah McMorris is going to be 19. Davon Hall is older. Like when you look at some of these guys that are a year and a half, 2 years older than the people that they're playing against, just magnify that in college, right? Purdue had 2 fifth-year guys playing against 2 redshirt freshmen at Nebraska, and I say redshirt because one of them was a COVID year. You've only been on campus 1 year. That stuff matters, man.
Hey, before we change gears, I want to take a moment and tell you about Zipline Brewing. They have this Mosaic IPA, which Shane was a huge fan of.
Loved it.
A delicious West Coast style IPA. Shane, I think you just want to be on the West Coast right now. Get away from the weather. Maybe
I sat around. I had 2-3 beers in a row. I said in a row.
And let me tell you, though, Shane, you chose well because this is the U.S. Open Beer Championship silver medalist you're drinking in a very crowded category. It's an American IPA. Big notes of blueberry, tangerine, and yes, Shane, you guessed it, papaya. Nice work over there. A taproom favorite, now available all year round. If
He
you
said
need a beer,
papaya.
By the way,
papaya.
By the way, you can get all that stuff from the website. Great website. I've been on there. I've checked it out. I love it.
It's Zipline Brewing. Coming up next, I have a point that DB and I are going to talk about in regards to 2023 recruiting. That's next. Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876, if you'd like to get involved at any point. I read an article this past week, and it was written by Mitch Sherman at The Athletic, and he was talking about, in Matt Rule's college coaching history, position change is a part of the game. And he mentioned Nate Hairston, Blake Lynch, Hassan Reddick, your guy at Baylor, the only guy that really stuck around at Baylor whenever Coach Rule took over. Jalen. Is it Petre? Yeah.
Well, was Fleeks, did he stick around? Because he's like 9th year now.
Yeah, yeah, he is. Maybe. Okay, so it may have been a couple of people. But these are all guys that are in the NFL, right? So it's guys that were like not really big finds. Those were the position change point of his article. But the big find was Hassan Reddick, right? Mm-hmm. A guy that was a walk-on, came in to play safety, got moved to edge, worked his way up, always had a good attitude, and now he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And that's kind of where this story kind of started. When, at least for me, it really sparked my interest. So with a lot of competition this offseason, movement around the roster, some positions have more holes to fill than others at Nebraska. And I'm not looking for the best recruit when I say this, DB, but someone who's willing to learn. I'm taking someone with maybe off-the-wall athleticism, maybe the other characteristics that need to be a well-rounded football player.
Could be the guy that popped that doesn't have a real defined spot right now.
Correct.
I got one.
When you look at the 2023 recruiting class, everybody out there, transfer or high school, who could be considered as Rule's next big find?
So, like, if I'm, because as I understood the question yesterday,
kind of, when we were texting back and forth,
I wanted to wring your neck through the phone, but that's okay. You owned it, so it was cool.
I missed it.
I was like, wow. So, you know what? Like, you know who came to mind immediately?
Hit me.
VCJ, Vincent Carroll Jackson. Because I'm not sure what he's going to do.
Right.
But I think he's talented. I think he has a big personality, so he can kind of help with the the promotion of Nebraska. Like, if he does, he's the guy that I could see this, and I'm so weird, which is why I was asking follow-up questions, right? Because do you know what I envisioned? And I'm not saying he's going to the league, but he would be the guy that on Monday Night Football would say something funny like University of Nebraska, AKA Matt Rule University, home of the black shirts, GBR, go big red. Like
he would be the guy that changes it up.
He's that dude.
He's not the one that would just say like
if you watch him on social media,
University of Nebraska.
Yeah, he's going to hype his school because, I mean, he's the guy, one of the guys doing a lot of the peer-to-peer recruiting, right? He's just kind of, he's an interesting guy. He's kind of quirky. VCJ is kind of who I thought of in that role because you kind of see it, you envision it, then you develop it to be that. He was initially who came to mind.
I like that point. To further branch off of something that you just said, because here my brain goes another direction, of course. When you talk about those intros on Sunday Night Football, like, are you a fan of when they say like their grade school or their middle school?
It's whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, because who knows what I would do? Lower Dodge Elementary.
For me,
Morton Junior High.
Right. For
I
me,
don't know what I'd say.
I'm not a fan of it, and the reason for it is like when I was learning
Barry
sports,
Rogers.
Yeah, a little bit. When I was
very buttoned up.
When I was learning sports, it was better for me to know where they went to college than when they went to grade school or middle school. So like if I could know about a guy that I didn't know about, I'm just watching Sunday Night Football and I'm seeing a lineman that I don't pay attention to. And I'm like, wow, he went to Stanford. Stanford's like really produced some O-linemen, and like it allows me to think more like that.
Funny dude. You know what's interesting is I've gotten off of that because so two things. This is so funny you say this. So I've gotten off of this for two reasons. Number one, when I signed with my agent, it was Schwartz and Fabricant. Okay. Kerry Fabricant, Neil Schwartz, and I had the same agent as Mike Menner, and we went to dinner one day after a pro workout. We went to the Upstream downtown in Lincoln, and he said, this is so interesting, fellas. Well, number one guy ended up being a second round draft pick. The other guy was a free agent. So aside from those differences, he said this is so interesting on the perceptions of the schools. Mike was playing free safety. It was, black shirts. It was DBU. At the time, they were cranking out guys like had a lot of swag. His testing numbers validated what they saw in film. Me, on the other hand, really good testing numbers, 10-8 broad, whatever it was, right? So it was, man, kind of the knock on Nebraska running backs is you're used to running through too many holes. College typically can be too easy for Nebraska running backs. So it soured me on just affiliating a school with X amount of pro deal. And I just heard it the other day with Riley Moss. Riley Moss was doing an interview after one of the practices, and can't remember the guy from the NFL Network. He was like, hey, listen, the NFL scouts, I'm talking to these guys. They know that they're getting blank player from Iowa. Sound, heady, smart.
Sure.
All these terms. And I was like, man, you're afforded that kind of luxury just based on the school that you come from. Because that's how wide receivers that don't even play for college teams like Alabama have 6-year careers in the league because they were the 6th receiver at Alabama, right? So I kind of soured on that over time, but I see it manifest itself. Do you know what I like to do now? This is weird. I like to see where somebody went to high school and who they played against. Like that's kind of what
it just requires a lot more work on the back
end. It does,
end.
but that's why I like most recently Ramir Johnson. Why do I like Ramir? Man, Ramir went to a high school where there had to be regiment. They were used to winning. He had to do things a certain way. He wasn't the best guy on his team. He had to drive an hour to school. So I started doing that because I just felt like, I understand getting the benefit of the doubt, but we even do it with transfer portal guys. Wynn's from Alabama. Sherman's from Georgia. Like, we don't know. We just fall in love with the college.
Yeah, well, and I think that's just because the majority of people reference
That's
college
what they
and
know.
everything.
And
for you, like you are definitely in the minority when you say, hey, I would prefer to know where you went to high school than college. The majority of people would rather know where you went to college just to know where you went to college. Because that's at least what sparks more conversation. Going back to our original point, though, DB, for me, I think the next big find, and it may be a little more obvious than VCJ, is MJ Sherman. And, I've liked MJ since he first committed. He's someone who embraces competition. He isn't afraid to get a little dirty in the process. I mean, remember a month ago when I made the claim, don't be surprised if he's a captain come August. And it was kind of like
I looked at you.
Right. But because of the new staff, I thought, hey, we're going a new direction with everything. He's a silent leader. He leads by example. He embodies everything Matt Rule is about. His relatively limited role in stat line of 15 career tackles is more a product of Georgia's elite talent rather than his own struggles, because me, I'm not the type of guy that says, hey, when things get hard, move on, move somewhere else instead of fighting through it, because you're worried about X, Y, and Z happening in front of you. No, I'm big into battling through adversity. Not to say that I'm not all in on somebody saying like, hey, I'm not getting the playing time. I want to go somewhere where I'm going to get it. But I want you to move on for the right reasons. This is one of those things for MJ Sherman. He put in the work. He did as much as he could at Georgia to be involved in special teams and even sometimes on defense. But now he's ready to do it full time. He's ready to get there full time. But he never let that get to him. And that is why I like MJ Sherman for the next big fine take, because even when playing time wasn't easy, Kirby Smart still once said about MJ Sherman, I'm really proud of his maturity, which to me goes back to what I said at the very beginning of this whole thing, his willingness to learn.
Here's the funny thing, too. What if you're right? Like, let's say in 12 months, like MJ Sherman blows up. Do you realize the significance of what that does via the portal?
It goes back to what we were talking about at the end of last segment with Ed.
That would be a heck of a catalyst and a heck of a springboard.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you want to be developed and you didn't get the opportunity here. Look what happened here. Big school. That would be a heck of a story to tell.
And the transfer portal may get in the way now.
I mean, Trey Palmer may already be that guy.
Kind of already is. Yep. Because we were talking about when they lost Trey, who's going to replace that production on offense?
Yeah. Well, how about the only 3 guys at Combine are transfers?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Not good. Not good.
Hey, coming up next, we're playing 2 for You. Get involved. Give us a call. 2 for You time. You excited? Because we're going to play regardless if we have a listener or not.
Yeah, I'm always in on 2 for You.
And we want to give away gift cards. So give us a call. We'll start playing. And it's Hale Varsity Club gift cards where the food's just fantastic. And you can end up using it on Friday when you come to our live show.
Oh, how about that?
Why not?
We could be with our non-aforementioned buddy that decided to drink his breakfast. That was funny. I don't think he ate, but he stayed for 2 hours with his partner in crime. I was like, good on you. I wish I had one of those jobs. That'd be yes.
That was it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's that.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. I was just trying to remember if they got any food.
No.
Nothing to fill their belly up with.
No.
But hey, you're playing for a $10 gift
what
card.
Do you use, a blender or something?
Or
was he drinking like Bloody Marys?
Yeah, no, he was
drinking.
It was
orange juice in there.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Yeah, he was actually. Oh,
yeah,
remember they stayed.
So he was getting it in early.
Yeah, they stayed.
Gotcha.
Now, in his defense, he didn't get here until about 8.
Well, because he was.
So he stayed
till the night
10.
before, and he had to continue the next day. He had to sleep in a little bit. Who knows?
It's like, hey, we got some recordings to do.
All right, Shane, kick off some music. You and DB are going to go first.
Why?
Because I like when you play with Shane.
Oh, boy. Hey, so with the special, they have like the chicken tortilla soup that Shane loved. They have the jalapeno pepperoni and cream cheese pizza.
Today?
And the cherry something or other smoked wings.
I told you. I went
cherry
to try
chipotle.
That.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Because you're not sweet, right? That's not you.
I'm not a sweet meat guy.
Sweet. Yeah. All right, you ready though?
I'm ready.
Shane, you ready?
Let's get it.
All right.
I like how you said let's get it before you even said he was ready.
Let's go.
Let's just go.
Let's go.
All right, guys. A Nebraska football alum that played in the Super Bowl.
Do I need to write this down?
Okay.
All right, I got it.
A state that borders Arizona.
Wow, really?
Okay. Well, there's like 3 or 4. Maybe 3.
Okay.
Heads or tails?
Wow.
That's just a tip.
Shane, you got to come on more often.
Oh.
What did I say?
And something that rhymes with chief.
Wow. All right.
You ready? Let's play. All right, guys.
You're an idiot.
Hey, a Nebraska football alum that played in the Super Bowl. 3, 2, 1.
Sue.
That a boy. 1 for 1. A state that borders Arizona. 3, 2, 1.
Nevada.
California.
Those aren't the same name. 1 for 2. Still a good batting average. You're in the Hall of Fame right now.
Oh, shoot.
Hey, guys, heads or tails? 3, 2, 1.
Heads.
That's a winner right there, but we're going to play again. Hey, something that rhymes with chief. 3, 2, 1.
Leaf.
I said leaf.
Did he say belief?
He said believe.
I mean, because it made too much sense to just say leaf. I mean,
Yeah,
why not put the B in there, right? Just make it as
Don't you have some
complicated.
belief?
Make it as complicated as possible. Do you know what I thought he was going to say, except it's his wrong genre of music?
Shane, you are
I
unbelievable.
thought he was going to say Keef. Shane, do you know who Chief Keef is?
No.
I thought you guys were going to say beef.
He played free safety for us this year. That's what I used to call Kiefer.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Chief Keef. Shane.
Kaiser Sutherland.
Belief?
2.
Yeah, belief.
Only 2.
So we would have won
You
Trent
$10 gift card.
Yeah, we won
You would have
$10.
won Trent $10. I like how you put that.
Nice.
All right. Shane, you want to play with me or you want me to play with DB?
All right, let's go. Me and you, Andrew. Let's do this.
Uh-oh. Kick it off.
Can we ever get 4 for 4?
Oh, we'll get 4 for 4. I'm feeling good. Not with Shane, but with you when we play next. Hey, Shane, something you do first thing in the morning.
Okay.
A Pop-Tart flavor.
Okay.
A popular Valentine's Day gift.
Okay.
And something you'd order at Hale Varsity Club.
Oh, you know this one.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what would Shane order. All right, I'm gonna go with this. All right, I'm ready. DB, you gonna count us down for me?
Yep.
All right, Shane. Something you do first thing in the morning.
3, 2, 1.
Number 1. Attaboy.
Could you just not have said P?
No, I had to be a little bit outrageous when I said
Number 1?
number 1.
What are you, 3?
Oh, well, we found out I'm 4 because I pick on you. DB,
I
let's
didn't
count down
say
again.
that. You said that.
Hey, you're just in that.
He picks
You're
on
in
me.
that childlike mindset
Oh,
today.
buddy,
We get
I
it.
don't
We get it. You
say
jerk.
that kind of stuff.
All right, a Pop-Tart flavor.
3, 2, 1.
Brown
Strawberry.
sugar cinnamon.
Again, you're doing too much.
This is the OG flavor.
You're doing too much.
BSC is the OG flavor.
Brown sugar cinnamon?
That's what it's called.
You just
Look up-
can't keep it simple?
Simple? What's more simple than brown sugar
Oh,
cinnamon?
I don't know. Strawberry, cherry.
Cherry? Who buys cherry? Going with commonality here with Shane. He's Mr. Simple.
Okay.
Strawberry?
How'd that treat you?
Come on. Shane, you're wrong.
Of course.
A popular Valentine's Day gift.
3, 2, 1.
Chocolate. Attaboy.
Wow.
I thought he was going to say flowers.
Me too.
I thought so. And I'm like, oh, please say chocolate. Chocolate's the right answer.
I still. Okay. Cinnamon brown sugar's fine.
And something you'd order at Hale Varsity Club. I almost gave my answer.
Hey.
I took this as something I would order,
Okay.
Of course you did.
Well, thank goodness.
not something just a
Get it down.
generic person would order.
Well, I think what he's going to say is pretty generic as
Mhm.
well.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Hamburger.
Burger. Yep. That a boy. All right.
Wait, is that
Hamburger.
3?
3 out of 4. We would have
Shane.
gotten Pop-Tart flavor. Come on, Shane.
I don't eat Pop-Tarts.
Why didn't you just say like powdered rainbow cinnamon sprinkle
Chocolate chip
glaze?
cookie dough. Chocolate chip cookie dough. Shane, how much time we have? One
I
more?
watched a guy
2 minutes.
So I watched a guy on TikTok do taste tests for the chocolate chip cookie dough Twix and the chocolate chip cookie dough Milky Way. and he almost spit the Twix out. He said, "That's just regular Twix. Just buy it if you don't buy the cookie dough." But he liked the fact that the Milky Way had an opportunity with more nougat.
Nougat.
Say that slow. Trust me. There you go. Keep you safe on the radio. He liked that cookie dough one, but he just does it. He buys random things to see if it tastes like it's supposed to. He's a funny follow on TikTok. I know you laugh at me. It's fine. Don't laugh at me, Andrew.
I'm just still laughing because you made me say nougat slow.
Well, it's easy to make mistakes. Tony Romo.
Hey, you are it. I'm just telling you, dude. You are it today. You have that it factor. You have
Yeah,
that X
man.
factor.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
We would have played round 3, kind of running out of time today, so we'll avoid doing that.
Happy post Valentine's Day
Hey,
blues.
Happy
Payday for some.
Happy post.
What else? What else
Day
could
for
today
you.
be a good day? Some people are cheering. Some people are sad. Halfway through Black History Month.
Well, how about this? Juju does not have cred to troll the Eagles, according to
That
our
poll, that one.
audience. No,
Dude, he played his brains out.
27.8% said yes.
Juju played his brains out.
Not just in that game. When I said cred, I was thinking career-wise. Does he have enough cred to pull off something like that? I don't disagree with our audience. I don't think he's done enough.
Yeah,
but also, here's how I'm also I'm also on the side of, hey, this guy's in the NFL, so like he can say whatever he wants. Like all the other guys are in the NFL too.
Hey, he probably let Bradbury know ahead of time he was doing it.
You think?
Hey man, I'm about to get you on Twitter.
No way. No shot.
Did you see Dak Prescott's intercepting my love Valentine?
No.
Oh yeah. They were out there.